in what would feel like, I guess, a modern-day version of a Hasidic story. I began learning this Passover in preparation for the holiday, a book that was edited by my dentist. Yes, indeed, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, right across the street from where I used to live. I happened to walk into a place that had Reuven Mall, was on the shingle, and walked in and found someone exactly my age with a nice little yarmulke on, who went to Yeshiva University like me, grew up with a father who was a professor of philosophy, and who got smicha, became a rabbi, and then went back to become a dentist. And in his spare time, in between making fillings, he was in the back room. Where's Reuven? He's editing. He's learning Torah in between the teeth. And every time we sat together, I managed somehow to ask him to take out the tube so I could ask him a question about what he was teaching, and he asked me about my sermons, and we become quite good friends. And as he began to edit some of these books, he would send them to me. And the philosopher that he is most gripped by was a professor up at Yeshiva University, Rabbi Dr. Eliezer Berkovitz, Zichrono Livracha. He's a great philosopher who wrote extensively within the Jewish community, the modern Orthodox Jewish community in particular, and wrote extensively about the Holocaust and other very complicated issues of the 20th century. And in the latest book, Reuven's book that I read in preparation for this Chag, we have this entry from Rabbi Berkovitz on the counting of the Omer, the 49-day period between Passover and the next holiday, Shavuot. So we have 7 weeks between the second day of Passover and the holiday called Pentecost, or the holiday of weeks, which will come with the revelation at Sinai. And so here's what Dr. Berkowitz had to say about the unique formulation, Usfartem lachem, and you shall count for you. The Hebrew term in the Bible, the book of Leviticus, is you shall count lachem, for you, which again, for those who study the Bible, each word is important, and so if there's a seemingly superfluous word, it's kind of like, what is that word doing there? Lachem, for you. Why count for you? So says Dr. Berkowitz. What does for you mean? I suggest we read it and translate it as follows, he writes. You shall count unto you. You shall count days and weeks, that your days on earth may be complete. You shall count, yes, there is no other way of organizing life efficiently, but by counting, we must not forget our mathematics, he writes. But let your counting be for you, i.e., all of your countings should be related to you, to your life, to your true needs, not just your ambitions and vanities and passions. You shall, of course, count, yes, but do not forget to count and to measure and to weigh yourself with open and critical eyes. You shall count certainly, but do not forget to take stock of the greatest fortune that you possess. Do not forget to count the days of your life. Did you work all day to amass new sums? Do not sit down in the evening to count the sums and numbers you made. First go into a quiet corner and say, this was one whole day of my short life. Ponder on the day, how you spent it. Was there any sense in it? How are you to use the fruits of your toiling so that your work may not be the wasting of your days, but the fullness of a life lived to some reasonable end and a satisfactory purpose? That is how you shall count, that the days of your life might be complete. This text from Rabbi Berkowitz, Dr. Berkowitz, is so profoundly connected to the first Torah that I taught this Passover on the meaning of matzah, according to Rav Kook, Zichrono Livracha, the great chief rabbi of Palestine, the first rabbi of Palestine, wrote that the meaning of matzah is that matzah, he says, hold within it the secret of growth, the intense concentration of energies that matzah is holding and holding and holding. It doesn't express itself in more than 18 minutes. We stop it short as if its intensity is still hidden within it, and only with the breaking of the matzah at the Seder does its fullness come about. Rav Kook wrote, Lechem Oni, this impoverished bread is also Lechem She'onim alav dvarim harbe, that this matzah has within it the secret of an intense focus of energy. Wonderful symbol. But this completes it because not only is matzah an intensification of energy, but it's also the withdrawal of energies from all around and focusing them right into the center of the matzah, like the tzimtzum, like the divine withdrawal before creation, say the mystics. There's an intense focus of energy in this matzah that comes to fruition in this teaching. In its release, does it lead to a counting of your days that might be full? But there's something missing between that concentrated energy of matzah and this teaching from Dr. Berkovitz. A friend of mine this week was sitting with me in my office, and I was telling her about the last couple of years and about all the things that went on in my life, and specifically things that went on here in the shul, and bringing her up to date. She hadn't seen me in a couple of years, I hadn't seen her. And so I told her, yeah, some things are still here and some things aren't here anymore. And it's there's a bit of an absence. I said there, and she said to me, without missing a beat, she said, well, if there's an absence, what are you filling it with? What did it make room for that you are now filling it with, she said. And it hit me so hard because I then began to think about how nature abhors a vacuum, and that when an intense release of energy happens, or when a withdrawal of energy happens, when we remove something or when we express something, how does it go? Where is it going? The Torah is brilliant in this way. We're released from slavery. And as the great philosopher Isaiah Berlin wrote, freedom from is just the first stage. Okay, great, I'm out of school. I've got a whole day. And now the next level, what am I going to do with it? The anxiety, the paralysis. Now that I have my freedom, my hard-won freedom, now that we've broken the matzah, it's been expressed in a profound way. We're free. Berlin said, free from, yes, but free to what? What are you free to do? What will you do with your precious gift? Because if you don't plan it, if we don't actively engage how we want to count our days, they will count, but not in the way that we want them to. So now we're out of that relationship. Great. Tick-tock, tick-tock. So crazy. Now I'm back in the same relationship. How did that happen? Now I'm that job, thank God, I'm free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm not at that job any longer. Okay, great. So are you working with the void, or are you avoid dancing around the void? How we actively engage what has been freed up by the space in our drawers, our closets, our lives, our hearts, our space is vital. So Torah says, okay, you're free from Egypt. You see those Egyptians on this evening and tomorrow and yesterday. We saw the Egyptians, that thing that we feared the most. It's done, and now what? Not to rush you. It's not like your mother, your father, whomever it is, your friend saying, okay, hurry up. You say, okay, listen, I've been working for 20 years. Give me 5 minutes off. But there's a profound spiritual truth that my friend unlocked in me. But she actually engaged me to think, okay, that period is over now. I've been mourning it, I've been grieving it, I've been thinking actively about it, I've been actually trying to rebuild it and to restructure it. And she said, well, okay, but what's going on in that empty space? As you begin to count your way towards Sinai, as our tradition says, as we begin to count our way towards Shavuot, towards the holiday where we receive our marching orders, our mission statement, our what we should do with our lives, there's a space of emptiness there that invites articulation. It invites a precious opportunity for us to do something differently. Because if we don't, it'll be the same. We'll just, as John Kabat-Zinn said, wherever you go, there you are. There's Big Ben and there's Parliament. It's like, oh, wow. How precious that tzimtzum, how precious that removal or that expression of energy that opened up now how we might build a life in a different way. How we might shift gears and manifest something new in our lives, something more optimal, more aligned, more true, more connected, so that we're not there yet again. In that way, Pesach is really the holiday for love. In that way, it really makes me understand why we read the Song of Songs tonight, tomorrow morning. It's not only because spring love is in the air and, it's awesome. It's not just that everything is verdant again and alive again, but love is what we're looking for. And love is, if done with care and concern, we might enter that space of not knowing, of, okay, that's not there anymore. How might I build this with love as our guide? What would love say needs to happen next? What would love demand of me in this moment? And how might we be with one another in that way as we journey towards Sinai? I think that's what Dr. Berkovitz was trying to say. Usfartem lachem. Count lachem for you. See this opening, this empty, as a possibility to fill it with something that really counts, so that we might build step by step, day by day, towards a new reality and new orders for the next stage of our individual and collective lives together. May we have the courage to do so and the clarity to engage that practice. Please rise.